There it is. This is the women's 4A final. People's Republic of China won, then Denmark, Australia won, the USA, Great Britain won, and Canada out of lane 6. So programs with loads of sweep experience and pedigree.
So this is Britain's top women's sweep boat. They are 3 world champions in this boat, plus Helen Glover, double Olympic champion. They couldn't beat the Australians in yesterday's semi-final. They couldn't beat the Americans in the heat. Lot to do from the British. There in lane 1 is China 1, Zhang Shuyang, Liu Xiaoxiang, Wao Zhifeng, and Xu Xingxie. Liu and Wong, veterans of the Tokyo Olympics. Women's double sculls, the women's 8s. This really good Danish 4, furthest away from you, Julie Poulsen, the 26-year-old, Marie Johannessen, the 26-year-old, Frida Sangard Nielsen, the youngest in the crew at 24, and Astrid Steensberg in the stroke seat. There are Australia 1, Lucy Steffen in the stroke seats, behind her Sarah Yore, Katrina Werry from Mercantile Rowing Club in Victoria. We know you're watching down there, so we hope you're enjoying this. Georgia Patton in the bows. The USA, who's going to beat them? Claire Collins, closest to us from Virginia. Madeline Wanamaker from Wisconsin. How many oarswomen come from Wisconsin? Loads of them. Kelsey Relick from Connecticut. Jill Sixton-Sit with New Zealand, and Molly Brugman from Ohio in the bows. Here's the British crew, and Heidi Long up in the bows, Helen Glover in the 2 seats, Samantha Redgrave come into the boat for this regatta. She was in the 8 in the Europeans, and Rebecca Shorten in the stroke seat. And Canada, who are doubling up in the women's 8, and we have got Jess Sevick, Cassidy Dean, Morgan Ross, and Kirsten Edwards from University of Victoria, Ridley Graduate Boat Club, Kingston, and UBC Calgary. So here we go. I guess the Americans might score their first medal if their heat form is matched in the final. They are a formidable unit. And Jessie Foglia, the coach of this American crew, if I'm not mistaken. And I think they lead out, is that right?
Yeah, the USA leading, but Australia running right with them. As a look then at GB, who's just a touch behind them, but really tightly packed, as it always is, or often is in the very early goings. But it is the USA now, just by a hair, about 1 meter or so advantage over Australia. And I'm really interested, Martin, to see the US and Great Britain in the second half in particular. I think they're both strong third quarter crews, and they kind of build into it. But I think the Aussies, they'll need to have an eye, because they don't want to wait too long to do anything. Certainly no one's waiting at the moment, with Great Britain now leading, running with the USA for first.
Yeah, I read the kind of press release. I think Sam Redgrave, who sits in the 3 seat now, the powerhouse in the British crew, she said, we had a few things to work on in the semi-final. We were quite pleased with what we did. On to tomorrow. No stress about it. They weren't particularly worried overtly about the Australians beating them. They have a half-length lead over the Aussies. They have a 2 or 3 metre lead over the Americans at the moment. Going well for Great Britain. It is China over on the far side. China Wong, Zhonglu Wong, and Zhu, who are coming through to take the bronze medal position ahead of Australia.
And a great shot then of the Americans toe-to-toe with GB. Your pick for who leads, because it is back and forth, stroke by stroke, really depending on who's in the water at the time.
I think the Americans must have such confidence after beating this British crew in the heat. Britain are going to think, we're learning all the time. This will be a step on for them. Look across by Helen Glover, 36-year-old, just to check where the Americans are. She's double Olympic champion in London and in Rio in the pairs. Came back to Tokyo, scored a 4th place in the 4. They had that narrow lead over the Americans. Sam Redgrave had a finger operation, and she just came back from surgery into the women's 8. She's got more to come through the season. There's the third place crew, China 1 on the far side, Zhang Liu, Wang and Zhu. Sculling rowing really well, I beg your pardon.
Yeah, and keeping in really good touch, aren't they, with the Americans and GB. It is USA, well, truly they are trading spots stroke by stroke. For the USA, we saw them last at the World Champs last year. It's a new combination for them, but good pedigree across all boat members. The USA just a touch ahead of GB at halfway.
Only a second off the world's best time, 3:07 that was through the 1,000 metres. This is a very quick race. And toe-to-toe, what a fantastic contest. I'd still pick the Americans to win from this position. One would say you never write the British off or Helen Glover at your peril. They are the world champions. They did win in dominant form in Varese in 2022. But this American four have come over here with a brilliant style of rowing. They really do look long. They really do look fluid. These women who train together as a unit.
Claire Collins, Madeline Wanamaker, the stern pair of the USA 8 coming out of the Tokyo Olympics in this very boat class where they won the B final.
That's a decisive move the USA have made. Britain aren't going to come back from that. I think this is USA's gold medal now. Britain have had a great effort in the first 1,000. It's for them to make sure that the Chinese on the far side stay back there and they stay ahead of the Australians. It's basically the Americans to lose. They have made a great move in the third quarter and they can sense those gold medals as they go through the middle of the race. But they haven't yet thrown off Great Britain. I think the British have checked them. I don't know what the sprint is going to be from the British, but I do think that was a race-winning move that the Americans made. And I'm not sure how these four women are going to be headed in the last 500 metres. I'm not sure I've seen that sprint from the British in a race this season. They didn't have it at the Europeans when the Romanians sprinted past them. I'm not sure they're going to have it here.
They've taken it up one beat to start that sprint at least, 38 to 39. The Americans at 40 strokes per minute. The battle for bronze, well, it's looking like it'll go the way of the Aussies, pushing China 1 away.
Yeah, the Aussies will sense the British there somehow. The stroke woman of that Australian crew, Lucy Stephan, will be out on the hunt for the British. But there's our great drone shot. Look at the speed they're moving. Look at the cohesion of the USA crew. Look at the power in the sprint as they drive for the line. There's less than 200 metres to go now.
And 41 strokes per minute for the Americans, kicking it up. At 41 for Great Britain as well. Australia takes it up to 42 as well to get onto the podium. The Americans pushing away Great Britain. I think spot on, they were able to find that sprint. And the Americans then, in their final few strokes, just absolutely thrilling the grandstand. You can hear the crowd. Great Britain, fantastic effort, but unable to track down the Americans as they cross the line to take the gold. It will be the USA. Great Britain with Australia able to get on to the podium for the bronze. Then it's China 1, Canada, and Denmark. It all came down to the sprint.
So you heard Colleen Saville from America talk the American women's four through to America's first gold medal of the day here at World Cup 2 in Varese. Britain, well, they beat the Australians who bettered them in yesterday's semi-final, but this American four have shown they are a really fantastic unit. Showed that flexibility in the third quarter where Britain just went up level with them and they just shut the door and they weren't to be bettered in the sprint. A lot of work to do for the world champions. They will come out to race again in Lucerne. The Americans will go back to the USA thinking, job done.
And no, they're not doubling up. I thought for a moment maybe GB was doubling up here.
No, it's the GB second crew that raced the B final this morning. There's the British and the Americans. Great race in that first 1,000 metre, wasn't it?
Yeah.
super shots that we've got there. But there's the Americans coming up to the finish line. Didn't quite get the time of that race. World Cup best time 6:17, not quite a world's best time. The Kiwis' world's best time is 6:14. Lives to fight another day. There it is. Great Britain won a length behind, Australia a length behind the British.
Ladies and gentlemen, the victory ceremony.
Vincitrici della medaglia d'oro ed attuali leader della Coppa del Mondo.
The United States of America.